所以我希望一點出發呢個方法係真係要幫到你哋自己去貼題啊。2021年第9條題目係有關於生態系統嘅科學探究同埋植物嘅成長參數嘅。以下呢兩張照片呢，就顯示咗兩種自由浮動嘅淡水植物，分別係物種1同埋物種2嘅。咁為咗研究呢兩種物種嘅相互作用啦，我哋就分別將物種1同埋物種2分別獨立去培養，同埋放喺同一個水缸入面呢培養50日嘅。而喺實驗開始嘅時候呢，各種物種都係覆蓋咗10% 嘅水面嘅面積。你睇翻呢幅圖啦，都可以理解翻整個實驗嘅裝置啦。咁啊，我哋呢個水缸入面放滿水啦，咁啊個水面咧就放咗呢啲自由浮動嘅植物啦，就係物種1同埋物種2啦。而喺實驗開始同埋結束嘅時候呢，我哋都會量度咗各個物種嘅覆蓋百分率。而我哋喺下面呢幅圖呢，就見到啦，喺個實驗期間所增加咗嘅覆蓋百分率啦，睇清楚 x-axis 咯。兩支棒呢都係講緊物種1嘅，即係話無論啦佢係獨立養啦，定係放埋物種2一齊養啦，佢都係一個高一啲嘅覆蓋百分率嘅增長嘅。而喺物種2咧獨立成長嘅時候就係咁高啦，當佢同物種1放埋一齊嘅時候咧係跌咗好多嘅。好，咁啊入題目之前啦，咁啊不得不提啦，又係3個 V 啦 ，IVDVCV 喺呢個探究入面啦係啲咩呢？咁啊 IV 咧就係究竟呢啲植物嘅物種啊，我哋係自己獨立養啊，定係放埋一齊養呢？ DV 咧就靠你哋咯，啊將你嘅答案咧留喺留言區啦。咁我遲下咧都會拍翻段 shorts 咧講下呢個實驗嘅 DV 嘅。咁但係你想快啲去試下嘅，當做下題目嘅，不妨留低你嘅答案啦。去到控制變項 CV 啦，就係呢3個裝置咧，佢哋都一定要係一樣嘅。啊，例如啦，一開始嘅覆蓋表面面積嘅百分比啦，就係入面加嘅水嘅分量要一樣啦。呢3個水缸都要放置喺一個同等光度啊、同樣溫度嘅環境去成長啦。咁啊，本身咧你當啦頭2個裝置咧，我哋都係擺喺一個咧較為有陽光啦、溫度適中嘅地方。但係去到第3個裝置咧，我將佢擺喺個好陰暗啊、好凍嘅地方嘅話咧，其實已經係唔公平噶啦。所以啦，對於 CV 嘅控制咧，大家一定要識咯。好，咁我哋入題目啦。Part A 咧就要我哋參考翻實驗嘅目的啦。就住物種1同物種2嘅相互作用啦，根據實驗嘅結果啦，會得出啲咩嘅結論呢？咁記緊翻啦，題目就係想去研究一下究竟物種1同物種2佢哋嘅相互關係。即係題目我哋要分析數據，然後得出一個結論再解釋啊嘛，係咪？咁所以啦，我哋有分析嘅數據啦，亦都要解釋啦。咁當中啦，我亦都比較，我哋就要比較翻呢物種1同物種2啦。當佢哋獨立自己養同埋放埋一齊去培養嘅時候呢，佢哋嗰個覆蓋百分率嘅增長咧有啲咩嘅唔同呢？咁你見得到啦，物種1同物種2咧自己養嘅時候咧，咁佢哋都係高位啦。係當物種1同物種2放埋一齊養嘅時候咧，你見翻綠色嗰條線啦，你見得到咧物種1咧其實係跌咗少少，都仲係好高嘅。但係物種2咧就已經跌咗好多噶啦。咁根據呢個數據，咁究竟佢哋係咩嘅生態關係呢？咁所以嗰啲捕食啊、競爭啊、共生啊、寄生啊，大家一定要溫翻書咯。咁而家啦，我哋睇翻整個思考鷹架啦，點樣答得到呢個4分嘅題目呢？一開始啦就要睇一睇咯。喂，當佢哋咧獨立養嘅時候，同埋一齊養嘅時候啦，咁對於佢哋嗰個覆蓋百分率嘅增長啊，究竟有啲咩嘅變化咯？其實你見得到咧，大家都係跌咗嘅。其實你見得到咧，當佢哋放埋一齊養嘅時候咧，佢哋嗰個覆蓋百分率都係低咗嘅。我哋就會發現啦，當佢哋一齊培植嘅時候咧，覆蓋百分率或者佢哋生長速率咧，都係相比起單獨培養嘅時候係較為低嘅。所以佢哋彼此咧應該係一個競爭嘅關係，因為大家一齊輸啊嘛，係咪？可能話啦，物種1咪跌少少啫嘛，係啊，咁係咪跌咗啊？跌咗即係輸咗啦，係咪？咁物種2更加跌咗啦，咁更加係輸啦，兩個都輸，就係競爭關係啦。解答咗佢哋係競爭關係之後啦，我哋就去睇下啦。既然係競爭關係，究竟係勢均力敵啊，定還是其中一方俾人吊打呢？俾邊一個物種係真係俾人大蝦細呢？咁我哋就要睇翻啦。如果佢哋真係同大家競爭嘅時候，邊一個嘅植物物種呢？喺當佢哋一齊培養嘅時候，仍然係可以生長得快啲啦，或者佢嗰個覆蓋百分率嘅增加呢係大一啲嘅。咁根據翻實驗結果，我哋都會發現啦，物種2同埋物種1一齊養嘅時候呢， 咁其實佢嗰個覆蓋百分率啊，佢個生長速率啊，其實都係下降得零舍犀利嘅。咁可能物種一啦，可能略略睇啦，跌咗5%啦。咁但係物種二咧係有機會跌咗20%㗎。所以咧，我哋就能夠得出第二個結論啦，就係佢哋競爭之餘，邊個贏家啊？就係物種一係贏家啦。物種一咧較物種二係更加具有競爭力嘅。跟住啦，去到第二部分啦，今次咧就要我哋參考翻物種一同物種二嗰幅相喎。咁就住啦，兩種物種如果佢哋一齊培養嘅時候啦，競爭啊嘛，係咪啊？咁喺個覆蓋百分率所出現嘅差異，提出一個解釋啦。咁頭先我哋略略講過啦，係咪？物種二咧，當我哋同物種一齊養嘅時候咧，佢跌得好誇張嘅。但係物種一咧，雖然都係輸，但係輸得嚟咧都係跑贏個大市嘅。咁呢個題目落有咩留意咧？第一樣佢要考我哋嘅技巧咧，就係觀察啦、比較啦同埋解釋。而特別要留意嘅咧，就係兩幅相嘅放大率啦。你見到物種一咧，佢放大率係0.58%，即係縮細咗嚟睇嘅。但係物種二咧係放大咗1.5%。又或者就算你唔睇呢個0.58同埋1.5x 啊，你望下隻手都知啦。一個咧物種一咧係擺喺個手掌咧都遮住咗幾隻手指節嘅，但係物種二咧佢係擺你個手指頭上面都遮蓋唔晒嘅。知得到啦，原來物種一比起物種二係大好多嘅。咁咩大先？就係個葉較為大啦。咁所以啦，佢係有機會咧覆蓋咗喺個物種二上面啦。咁自不然佢哋有機會咧搭咗喺個物種二上面遮蓋咗物種二啦。咁當我哋知道咗物種一佢哋塊葉咧比起物種二塊葉係大好多嘅時候啦，咁亦都可以遮蓋咗佢啦。咁有咩咁特別先？自不然就可以霸多啲嘅表面面積啦，霸多啲表面空間、表面嘅面積嘅話啦，自不然亦都可以吸多啲光啦。因為植物係需要做光合作用噶嘛，係咪？會發現啦，其實成條題目到而家呢一刻都冇講過，哎呀，植物咧會進行光合作用嘅，但係你識噶嘛，係咪？一棵植物啦，而家爭輸咗啦，輸咩啊？咪生得唔夠快咯，生得唔夠快點解啊？長得唔夠快，有冇咩原因啊？可能整唔夠嘢食咯。咁其實呢個就係好典型嘅一點出發嘅概念啦。跟住啦，去到 Part C 咯。咁後面呢個表咧就顯示咗兩種咧量度植物嘅生長方法嘅。嗰個時間咧亦都話咗俾你聽咧，佢嘅可行性係高啊定係低嘅。量度先重咧係可行性係高嘅，量度葉嘅數目咧個可行性係低嘅。咁題目咧就俾咗個結論你噶啦。咁而家咧就叫你講翻個原因咯。咁今次呢條題目咧考我哋咧就係觀察啦。觀察啲咩咧？除咗觀察翻本身物種一、二佢哋本質上個大細啦，亦都要觀察我哋成個裝置咧究竟係有咩嘅特徵。我哋係有個水缸裝滿水，跟住就將啲自由浮動嘅植物放上面啊嘛，係咪？所以對於整個裝置嘅水嘅供應啦，同埋植物嘅大細啦，我哋咧係需要理解咗先嘅。而第二啦，我哋就要去理解下，利用唔同嘅成長參數去量度植物嘅成長咧，究竟有咩嘅好處同埋壞處啦。先睇下先重啦，點解佢係一個可行嘅量度方法呢？係因為整個裝置咧，我哋有充足嘅水分啊，所以我哋就唔會怕棵植物咧失水失得太多，從而啦就影響咗佢嘅先重。同埋啦，呢個裝置亦都唔需要殺死棵植物嘅，所以我哋可以每一日都去量度下佢嗰個先重，磅完咯，咪放翻落水咯。跟住啦，我哋就睇下咧數葉嘅數目究竟點解會係不適用啦，唔係咁可行喎。咁啊，因為一棵植物嘅成長咧，就唔係淨係講話啊，佢一定會多啲葉㗎，可能都係得一塊葉兩塊葉嘅咋。但係塊葉大咗，咁你得唔得啊？咁你話冇啊，啲葉咧都係得一兩塊咋，冇多到啊。係啊，但係塊葉咧大塊咗好多，你係咪冇數到咧？呢個量度方法咧就會出現一個失誤啦。就算你真係咁想數啊，但係你望下物種二，佢放大咗1.5倍，都仲係咁細棵，咁即係話啦，佢葉嘅數目咧係非常之難數，你直頭係數都數唔到嘅。或者下次咧，佢問個題目咧就話啦，我唔係數個葉嘅大細啊，我想數下棵嘢咧有冇生高啊，得唔得啊？嗱，當然今次係浮游植物嘅啦，咁所以佢未必話生得好高啦，就當啦我哋咧去量度一棵樹啊咁樣去計啦。咁但係佢嘅成長唔一定淨係生高噶嘛，佢可以打橫生，佢可以變粗噶嘛，佢冇高度噶，但係佢生粗咗，多咗好多枝葉啊！你就好似忽視咗咧其他嘅成長參數，都係一個唔完整嘅量度方法嚟嘅。咁答案咧就是這樣啦。有多一樣嘢咧想提翻大家嘅，就係你見得到咧，例如先重咧喺書本咧，佢有另一個好處嘅啫。簡單咯，方便咯，容易去量度啦，係咪啊？啱噶。咁你話可唔可以將佢咧寫做呢個答案啊？ 咁其實呢，你要留意下個概念啦。如果你覺得簡單方便都係一個理據嘅話呢，咁點解數葉唔可以啊？數葉真係咁難咩？去量度棵植物大細嘅變化，例如啲葉嘅數量啊、葉嘅大細，其實從書本嘅概念都叫做簡單方便㗎。但係喺呢個實際情況係咪真係簡單方便先？你話唔係啊？我將佢放大到10倍，擺喺個顯微鏡下面去睇。咁已經唔方便啦，已經唔簡單啦，係咪？咁所以啦，有陣時咧，書本俾你嘅答案啊，咁其實的確係一個方便說嚟嘅啫。但係當你擺翻落去一個題目嘅框架去答嘅時候咧，你就要就住翻啦。例如今次嘅實驗裝置，佢成個水缸真係好多水嘅。所以我哋量度先重係唔怕嘅。其實今次呢條題目咧都係考你細唔細心嘅，因為你要知道今次我哋嘅實驗對象係一個水生嘅植物，而我哋用晒成個水缸去浸住佢啊嘛，係唔需要怕佢哋咧係失水嘅，因為有成兜水浸住咗佢。相反啦，下次如果題目問你一啲喺陸地生存嘅植物，失水對佢哋嚟講就係一個風險啦，就會影響咗呢個陸生植物嘅先重啦。喺嗰陣時，我哋就要留意翻，究竟先重係咪真係一個好嘅方法？哪怕佢係何等嘅簡單同埋方便，唔用得就係唔用得。不過今次係用得嘅。講完先重啦、大細啦，我哋又講埋乾重啦，有啲咩嘅題型變奏呢？就話啦，喂，今次呢個實驗呢，我哋可以量度乾重㗎。其實我哋都知道棵植物有冇成長到㗎。咁 Part A 啦，佢就問你啦，喂，咁究竟阿 Peter 應該要點樣做啊？有啲咩步驟要做啊，先量度到棵植物嘅乾重呢？去到 Part B 啦，就係咧阿 Peter 嘅同學阿 Paul 同 Mary 咧，佢哋有相反意見喎。阿 Paul 咧就係同意阿 Peter 嘅，係啊，今次嘅實驗咧，去量度啲植物嘅乾重咧都得㗎，真係量度到啲植物嘅成長㗎嘛。但係 Mary 就唔同意啦，唔得㗎，今次咧唔好量度乾重啊，量度翻先重就 OK 㗎啦。咁題目咧就叫你評論下啦，阿 Paul 同 Mary。一個咧就支持，一個咧就反對。究竟啦，量度乾重喺呢個實驗係咪可行呢？咁我亦都話俾大家聽啦，你可以答可行，亦都可以答唔可行，各自都有理據嘅。有時喺留言區留低你嘅想法。好，跟住啦，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次嘅題目呢，又係講科學探究啦，講3個變項啦，然後啦就考翻大家對於觀察啦同埋生態關係嘅概念，1、2、3、4。然後啦就考翻大家對於實驗裝置嘅觀察啦，個結果嘅理解啊，數據分析嘅能力啦。咁我哋先講翻呢個生態關係先。今次呢，透過科學探究，有分析數據去閱讀翻個圖表，從而就知道翻物種1同物種2嘅生態關係，就得出結論咯。而今次呢條題目呢，亦都係一個好好嘅例子，去顯示到咩叫雙輸啊！大家咧對於 competition 咧，好多同學係唔理解嘅。你話競爭啊嘛，梁 Sir 有人贏就有人輸噶啦，應該係正負噶嘛，唔係啊。競爭係一個雙輸嘅局面嚟嘅。試想一下，其實當初物種1同物種2咧，當佢哋獨立成長嘅時候，獨立培養嘅話咧，其實成個空間都係佢噶嘛，佢贏晒噶。但係而家一齊養嘅時候，我要同你分啊！就算我贏，我都輸咗少少俾你嘅。其實大家都係雙輸嘅。啦，就去到科學探究啦、觀察嘅層面啦。今次嘅題目咧，俾咗結果嚟嘅，跟住要我哋分析下個結果啦，然後得出翻個結論啦，係咪？但係可能下次嘅題目咧，就會參照翻2021年第7條嘅玩法咯。佢就話俾你聽啦，嗱，我哋而家咧有個假説嘅。咁而家咧，你就可唔可以講俾我聽個實驗應該點樣做啊？或者佢話咗俾你聽個實驗點樣做啦？然後啦，要你預測翻個結果咯。咁啊，科學界咧有假説，呢兩款植物咧，原來係一個競爭關係嚟㗎。咁為咗驗證下呢一個假説啦，咁有個學生咧就進行一個科學探究啦。咁 Part A 啦，可能就問你啦，喂，究竟咧我哋有幾多個 set up 咧？咁你知得到啦，我哋物種1、物種2各自自己獨立養啦。去到第3個裝置就將物種1同物種2放埋一齊養啦。係啦，你點樣去整理個裝置呢？有個水缸嘅，跟住啦入滿水嘅，跟住咧就將啲浮植物咧擺喺同一個位嘅。有啲咩要注意啊？嗰啲 IVDVCV 你噏唔噏得出啊？然後啦又要你講下啦，如果呢個假説係正確嘅話，究竟啦預測嘅結果又會係如何呢？所以你見得到咧，其實啲題型變化係可以翻來覆去噶。所以你睇唔睇得出個題型個變化啊？我輕輕一變咋， 就變咗2021年第7條嘅概念啦。2021年第7條嘅概念可以轉到2021年第9條嘅玩法啦，梗係可以啦。所以我希望一點出發呢個方法係真係幫到你哋自己去貼題啊，唔使靠梁 Sir 啊。你望到呢條題目，你可以諗下，咦，往年嗰條咪咁樣出嘅咯，下年可唔可以咁樣出發啦？OK， 同埋啦，最後尾呢條題目咧就考翻生長嘅參數啦嚇，咁量度唔同類型嘅參數啦，乾重、鮮重、大細、面積、高矮、肥瘦，究竟有冇好處壞處呢？ Go-to-1 Question 9 is about the ecosystem scientific investigation and the plant growth. The photograph shows the appearance of two species of free-floating freshwater plants, species 1 and 2. And in order to study the interaction between these two plant species, each was grown either alone or together with another species in the water tank for 50 days. So you can see the setup. The water tank is full of water, and then we put the free-floating plant on the water surface. Each species covered 10% of the area of the water surface at the beginning of the experiment. So you can see the top view of the free setup. And then for the percentage coverage of each plant species was measured at the beginning and at the end of the experiment, and the increase in the percentage coverage are shown in the graph. You need to take a look at the x-axis. These two bars, they are species 1, and for these two bars, they are species 2. Species 1 and 2, they are growing alone, so the bar is that high. And when they are growing together, so you can see the difference. So you can compare the increase in percentage coverage of species 1 and 2. And before we enter the question, so let's talk about the three variables, IV, DV, CV. The IV, independent variable, whether the plants grows together or alone. And for the DV, please share your opinion in the comment section. Let's see your concept is clear or not. And for the CV, control variable, so they are kept constant in these three setups. So including the initial percentage coverage, the amount of water, light intensity, and the temperature in their growing environment. For example, for species 1 and 2, they are put in a room temperature and the normal light intensity. But for the setup 3, we put it in a very cold area, and then the light intensity is also very low, very dim light. It makes the comparison among these three setups not fair. So let's take a look at the question. With reference to the aim of the experiment, what conclusion can be drawn about the interaction between species 1 and 2, and explain your answer? So this question checks us the critical skills for the data analysis and the explanation, because we need to take a look at the graph and then draw some conclusion and then do the explanation. And for this part, we also need to do the comparison. We need to compare the increase in the percentage coverage when the plant species are grown alone and grow together. So you can see that for the species 1 and 2, when they are grow alone, so the bars are a bit high, and when they are grow together, so you can see that for species 1 it drops a bit, but for the species 2 it drops a lot. So according to this observation, so any conclusion can we draw? And we also need to recall the ecological relationship. We need to identify the ecological relationship between the species 1 and 2. First part, any change of the increase in the percentage coverage when the plant species are grown alone and grow together. The easy idea is that when they are grow together, for species 1 may drop maybe around 5%, but for the species 2 it may drop around 20%. So according to the result, so we can see that both species 1 and 2, the percentage coverage or growth rate when grow together is lower than when they are grow alone. Therefore, it shows that they are in the competition relationship. Because the growth rate of species 1 and 2 when they grow together, it drops. And the second comparison is that if they are really competing with each other, which plant species have a higher percentage coverage when they are grow together? And we can still see that for species 1 when they grow together, still have around 90% coverage, still have 90% coverage increase. So it shows that the drops in the coverage and growth rate for species 2 was much higher than that of species 1. Both of them, they drop, yes, it's true. And we can see that species 2 drops a lot. As what I mentioned, it drops for around 20%. Therefore, we can see that species 1 was more competitive than species 2. So they are the two conclusions. And then for part B, with reference of the photographs of species 1 and 2 and suggest an explanation for difference in the percentage coverage of these two plant species when they are grow together. So for this question, it checks us the skills for the observation, comparison, and the explanation. And especially, you need to be aware of the magnification power of these two photos. For species 1, the magnification is 0.58, so that means we are a bit zoomed out of the photo to take a look at the whole plants. And then for the species 2, the magnification is 1.5x, that means we really zoom in a bit. Even you do not see the magnification power here, and you can still see the overall picture. For the species 1, we need to use 3 fingers to hold it. However, for the species 2, cannot cover our 1 finger. So we can see that there are larger leaves in the species 1. For what? To be more successful in overtopping or shading species 2. And then we need to realize the benefit of having such large leaves for the plant survival. Yes, species 1, they can do the overtopping or shading the species 2, but they are in competition. Compete for what? They compete for light and the surface space. So for the species 1, they have larger leaves, and then they can cover more surface space on the water tank, and then they can absorb more light than the species 2. And for part C, the table, it shows 2 other methods of measuring plant growth and whether this method would be feasible in this experiment. And we need to complete the table by giving the justification for the feasibility of the method. Measuring the fresh weight, fresh mass, is feasible. Counting the number of the leaves is not feasible. So what is the reason behind that? So this question, it checks us the skills for the observation. Not only observing the size of the plant, but also observing the whole setup. So we know that on the whole setup, we have the water tank and full of water, and then we put the free floating plant species on the surface. And for the concept checking, we need to realize the advantage and disadvantage of using different parameters to measure the plant growth. So first of all, we talk about the fresh weight. Why it is so feasible? Because in the whole setup, there are plenty of water supply. Therefore, the fresh weight will not be affected. Or you can say that the fresh weight, we can keep measuring it. So that's why the experiment can be continued without killing the plants. So that's also the advantage of using the fresh weight as the parameter to measure the plant growth. And for the number of the leaves, why it is not feasible? Because you can see that for the species 2, wow, they are so small. So that's why the leaf number is difficult to be counted or is even uncountable. It may not be the good way for measuring the plant growth because we just focus on the leaf number. We may neglect or ignore other dimensions of the growth. Maybe for another question, it can ask you that when we are measuring the plant growth of a tree, a big tree, why measuring the height may not be a good way? It's because the plants, when they are growing, they may not really grow taller, but they can grow thicker. They have a thicker stem. So at that moment, if we only focus on the height but do not focus on the stem thickness, so the measurement is not comprehensive enough. And after that, I would like to talk about the very general advantage of using the size or fresh mass for the parameter. Easy and convenient. Can we answer this, Mr. Leung? I put that, fresh weight is feasible because it is easy and convenient. So as I say that, it is a very general advantage, and we need to have a very specific reason, justification for this setup, for this experiment. Easy and convenient. If we accept this answer for the fresh mass, so what about the number of leaves? Not feasible? Why? It should be feasible. Counting, using the size as a parameter. From the textbook, it say that it's easy and convenient. Okay, I don't think that counting the number of the leaf is that difficult. I can just put the leaves under the microscope and then I can observe it. So you know that it's already difficult. It's already inconvenient. Okay, what is easy and convenient? Because I can directly with my naked eye, and then to count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not take out the plants and put it on the slide and then put it under the microscope to observe it. It's already inconvenient, right? The idea is that from the textbook, surely they are very useful to give you the insight and some answer. For the questions, you need to be also aware of the particular setup. Think about the suitable answer. So any possible question variation, Peter claims that the plant growth can be measured by using the dry mass. For part A, state how can he do the measurement of the dry mass of the plants, and then you need to record the steps. For part B, Peter's classmates, Paul and Mary, have opposite opinion on Peter's fault. Paul agrees with Peter. Yes, it's okay for us to use the dry mass to measure the plant growth. However, Mary does not agree with Peter. So she thinks that no, we cannot use the dry mass. Probably we should use the fresh mass for the growth parameter. And then you need to comment on whether this method would be feasible or not in this experiment. You agree with Paul or you agree with Mary? I can say that the dry mass is feasible and is also not feasible. It depends on how do you perform the scientific investigation. Let's see your concept is clear or not. And then let's take a look at the curriculum mapping. So first of all, it talks about the scientific investigation, and then it checks you the three variables as well, right? It checks us the skills of the observation and explanation, and it also checks us the concept about the ecological relationship. So for the whole experiment, we have the data, we have the graph, and then we need to read the graph and then draw the conclusion. And for the ecological relationship concept, it's a very good example to show you the competition, the lose-lose situation. Both of them, they get harm. You may think that, oh, no, Mr. Leung, species 1, they win the competition, wow, and then they should get benefits from it. Not really, because you can see that. Because you can see that when species 1 and species 2, they are grow together, both of them, they have a drop for the percentage coverage. They have a drop of the increase of the percentage coverage. So it means that both of them get harmed a bit. But just species 1, because they are the winner, they get less harm. Or you can say that because they get less harm, therefore they are the winner. And for the observation part, this part I give you the result, and then you do the observation, and then you draw the conclusion. And what about next time? To be the exam say, to be the question 7. So I give you a hypothesis, and then I ask you to perform a scientific investigation to investigate it, and then do the prediction as well. So it's hypothesized that these two plant species are in competition relationship, and in order to test this hypothesis, a student is going to investigate. So for part A, I will ask you that how many setups will you use? How can you establish the 3 setups? Any IVDVCV? IVDVCV, you need to record them. And then if the hypothesis is correct, what would be the predicted result? Please leave your opinion in the comment section. Okay, and then you will see that you don't really need to rely on Mr. Leung to predict the question for you, because you can see that I just twist a bit. I can make the question 9 to be question 7. And can I twist the question 7 to be question 9? Surely I can do so. And you can also do it. And for this question, it also checks us the growth parameter and any advantage or disadvantage of using fresh mass, dry mass, or the size as the growth parameter for the plants or for the animals or for any other organisms. So you need to recall the concept from the textbook.